Welcome to today's program, Back to School Survival Tips from Sylvan Learning. Today we have two panelists. We have Scott Bukader, who is the Community Engagement Manager, and we have Emily Levitt, who is the Vice President of Education. Also joining us today, we have a program assistant. So if you have any questions or technical issues, please join the chat to ask any questions that you may have. During the program, we will have the Q&A enabled. So if you have any questions for our presenters, please type them in there. After the presentation, everyone who is registered will receive a link. And in that link, you'll receive a flyer and a handout for some tips that will be gone over today in today's program. And that will be emailed afterwards. So without further ado, welcome Scott and Emily, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Awesome. Emily, could you share that presentation? Do you have access to be able to do that now?
I do. Let me get this in better format here.
Sure, fair enough. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're so happy to be here. I'm just going to take one quick minute and share a little bit about Sylvan Learning. And so just so that you guys know before we hand everything over to Emily Levitt for you. So again, my name is Scott Bukader. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Sylvan In-Home and Sylvan Learning here in the Baltimore area. If you weren't aware, Sylvan Learning is based, although we've got centers all over North America, in fact, all over the world, Sylvan Learning is based right here in Baltimore County. Our headquarters office is in the Hunt Valley area, and we have, close to 100 people who work up there. So, if you didn't know that already, that's some pretty interesting news. We are very, very proud sponsors of the Baltimore County Public Library. A new partnership that started in 2020, and what a year 2020 has been. But a new partnership that started this year, this is probably the bright spot for us, is working together with the Baltimore County Public Library across the whole system. We were sponsors for Battle of the Books, which was a little different this year than we intended. We're also supporting the summer reading program, and we're happy to be doing sessions like this for folks like you. If you weren't already aware, Sylvan Learning has been serving families for over 40 years. So hopefully you've heard of us somewhere in there. We offer academic support and enrichment in our Sylvan Learning Centers. We have two in Baltimore County, one in Timonium and one in Timonium and Catonsville, and then we also have 3 additional centers around the Baltimore area. And then, like I said, Sylvan Learning has over, 600 centers across North America. We not only in-center, but we offer support, Sylvan support from in-home. We have a sylvaninhometutoring.com, which is an online marketplace that can connect you with tutors who can come to your home to support your students. And we have tutoring available both via our centers or our in-home tutors online, where instead of meeting someone in person face-to-face, you're meeting them face-to-face remotely or virtually online. And something new with all this fun stuff that 2020 has brought us, especially for areas like ours in Baltimore County, where our students are going to be home from school. I'm doing all this, doing all of their work, at least for the first semester or for the first half of the year. We're offering school support at Sylvan. So our Sylvan centers are opening in a very social distanced manner, following all the CDC guidelines, to bring in a minimum number of students each day to be able to support your student with a qualified tutor who can help them get through their work, who can help them to log in and stay on task and stay working. So if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, my contact information is there, or you can feel free to reach out directly to your local Sylvan Learning Center, and we'll be glad to help you with that. So without further ado, that's all I have about Sylvan. I'm very pleased to introduce you to Emily Levitt. Emily is our Vice President of Education. She is the leader of all things academics at Sylvan Learning. She has a long and historied career with Sylvan Learning, and I'll let her tell you a little bit more about her background. But we have been lucky enough to be privy to Emily's expertise for years and years. So without further ado, I will pass the bar to Emily. Emily, thanks so much for joining us and leading us through this.
Oh, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. So after that wonderful intro that Scott gave me, I think the last bit I'll share is that I love working at Sylvan. I have worked for other large publishers and education organizations over the years, and my heart has always been with Sylvan. I've never been with another company that has cared as much about their children as Sylvan does. And it makes me proud to work there every day, and it makes me proud to do these kinds of webinars. I also love the county public school system. I have two sons who are going into 3rd and 4th grade. And like all of you probably who are in attendance here, you're wondering how you can make the most of a year that looks very different. And we're going to talk you through that a little bit today. So without further ado, this year, especially more than any other year, I think we really need to work on some tips and strategies to really get through the year together, because it's going to be stressful. So the only thing left to do is make it as less stressful as possible. We want to spend the next 30 minutes to give you some of those useful strategies to help you and your family survive the back to school season. And, you know, and further, hopefully not too much further. It would be great to get back into the building at some point. And then at the end, I'll be around for another 30 minutes. So if you have any other questions or something I didn't cover, I'm happy to go through with you. Okay, so let's dive in. This is the first step that I have started to do to get my own children ready for back to school. And I would expect that this should be something that's very handy for you as well, whether you're going to public school or private school. You should know, hopefully by now, the school has informed you when your child is expected to be online during the day. So for example, at my children's school, they're expected to be doing some kind of schoolwork between 8:30 and 3:30, kind of dedicated time. And what I'm waiting for now is to figure out when do they need to be live online and when are they supposed to be working independently. And as soon as I have that information, and if you have that information, the best thing you can do is make a family calendar. So that way you'll know not only when your child needs to be online, but when it might coincide with other things that are going on in home. So if you expect to have meetings, if you have some kind of big work event coming up, doctor's appointments, whatever you have, it's going to be good to know when your child's going to be expected to be online so that you can try to coordinate that as best as possible. Won't be perfect. There'll definitely be days and hours where calendars don't sync up as well as you would wish them to be. But if you have one place where you can put everything, you can see kind of like the overall view of your family's house for each day, it'll make your life a lot easier. Google calendars are pretty good for that. If a lot of office calendars have a way to export to Google calendars, and then you can layer your family calendar on top of that. So that way you can view, you know, one or the other or both simultaneously, and you can get a nice picture of what your day looks like. Once you know when your students are supposed to be expected online, then you can also figure out when should they complete the independent work. How many hours of work are they supposed to do a day offline? And then when are they expected to turn that in? And then also make sure that you schedule some breaks. Just like it is awful for an adult to sit and watch an 8-hour webinar, it's going to be awful for a student too. Maybe even more because they're not used to sitting that long without getting up and moving around. So if you can imagine, or for just for a minute, imagine what a regular school day would have been like. They're changing classes, they're moving from, you know, really intensive academic courses to, you know, PE or art or music and other things that will give them a chance for their brains to shift in a different mode, and also possibly get them up and moving. So you shouldn't try to simulate that at home, but at least keep that in the back of your mind of they need scheduled breaks. It's good for everyone, so that way they'll be a little refreshed when they can sit back down. So if you have time to like get them outside, go for a walk, go play fetch with the dog, you know, or if you need to give them a reward break for, you know, TV for half an hour while they eat lunch, just something so that they can kind of decompress a little bit in between needing to be kind of on. When you do sit down to schedule this, if your children are old enough, this is a great opportunity to model time management skills. So you can say, all right, I see you need to be online from 8:30 to 11:30, and then you have a break and you don't have anything else to do online for the rest of the day. So let's work out, when are you going to eat lunch? When are you going to work on your independent skills? Tell me what it makes sense for you to take breaks. And if the students are old enough for them to get some buy-in into what the calendar looks like, there's a much better chance that they will feel some ownership over it and that they'll follow it. If you are in the public system here in Baltimore County, if you don't know BCPS 1, then it is time to get to know BCPS 1. You should have, because there are a lot of interruptions during the day, like this one. When you log into BCPS 1, you'll be able to see all kinds of things. You can see your students' records, some of their academic records. You can see their classes. You can get a hold of the teacher. You can also sometimes see what assignments they have, if they've been graded, if they haven't, when were they turned in. And a lot of BCPS 1 sections have access to online tools, research databases that are kid-friendly. Practicing keyboarding skills is one. There's like a kid-friendly, it's not PowerPoint, but there's kid-friendly versions of presentation software if they need to make something. So just really explore BCPS 1 or your school's LMS. If you're going to a private or independent school, they'll have a version of this. And you're going to find a whole lot of tools in there that might help make your life a little bit easier. And odds are your students are already familiar with that anyway. So if you can get to know it as well, just a little, then you can kind of help them, decide what tools they need to use, where do they need to be, that kind of thing. And again, just make sure that you compare the school schedule to the home schedule so you can coordinate activities. I know that there are some families that would still like extracurricular activities to go on after school. And if you have some that are conducive to the times we are living in, then absolutely include those in, because kids are still going to need some time to burn off energy and make some social connections as well. All right, so the other thing I'm going to do differently this year, and I'm going to share this so you don't make the same mistake I made. In the spring, I thought, all right, we're just going to be out for a couple months. It's not ideal, but I don't feel the need to completely rearrange my house to make sure that everyone has a dedicated study zone. So I let the kids do their online classes from their beds and just like get comfortable or get in a beanbag chair in their room and just do it. That's not going to work this fall because we know from the get-go, we're looking at least 5-6 months, and they do need to really take much greater care with their academic time this year, and it should feel like academic time and not just home time. So what I'm going to do is for each of the kids, find a low traffic area with good lighting, try to make it as quiet as possible and as free from distractions. If your student has a phone, unless they need it for school, I'd say take it, put it away when they're supposed to be online so that it's not taking their attention away from what they should be listening to. Make sure their area is also stocked with supplies. Do they need, paper, graphic calculators, whatever it is they might need. Make sure, if possible, that you can also be within earshot. If they need to call for you, if they're having technical trouble, if they need something really quickly, it's good to be right nearby. Plus, it's also handy for you because you can make sure that the class is still going on and it's not like YouTube in the background. If it is possible, make a dedicated area in the house. I know, sometimes we're kind of in close quarters and it's hard to do that. And if it has to be the dining room table, hey, that's fine. But if you do have the room in your house to make a dedicated area, I would definitely try to do that. So this fall I am rearranging furniture in the house to make sure that they each have a desk and they're in two different rooms so that they don't disturb each other or me, as I'm also trying to do my full-time job. Okay. Make sure that you start off as organized as possible. If they're old enough, make sure that they have some input into what organizational systems work best for them. Some might want, to look at the daily calendar, just have it kind of pinned up right next to their desk. Some might want everything online. Some kids are going to be really great independently, no matter which organization system you use. So you know your child best. Just come with with an idea of how to really get through that day in an organized way. And if the student has notes or projects or reading materials they need, make sure you can help your child keep them in a logical order so they can find what they need when they need it. Because I'm guilty of this as well. I have the pile, right? So I'm trying to model better, organization skills by trying to have as few piles as possible. All right. So this is also a good time to remind kids that they can, be a little empowered in what they offer or how they get through the day with class. So talk to them, ask them if they know what to do, if they have a question or they need help. How do they ask the teacher? How do they get that help? They also should know not only who to ask for help, but when is it appropriate to ask for help? Because just like in class, you can't, shoot up your hand and immediately start, asking questions while the teacher is talking. There are going to be similar rules to online as well. So make sure that your child is familiar with who and when they can ask for help. And make sure they know about all of the resources they have handy to them, not only the ones that were available last year through your school's learning management system, but anything new that the school might have put in place specific for online learning. And encourage them to be their own advocate. If they really need something, this is a good time you can give them the pep talk and kind of like send them on their way, and you can kind of listen and see how they do. It's a good time to foster a little independence where had they been in the school building in the past, it might have been easy for them to just kind of sit quietly in the corner. But now you can give them a little push in a supportive way to speak up. All right, so the other thing that we should know kind of as we're setting our students up for success for the year is your students should know how their grade's going to be calculated. Is homework counted? How much do projects weigh in the overall grading scheme? Just they need to be aware of what's going to count for what, so they'll know how to strategically work through the year. If the course, this will be more pertinent to high school, but if you have a course outline or syllabus, make sure that is front and center, doesn't get lost, maybe pinned up on the board, by their desk. They need to know kind of where the roadmap for the class and what's going to be important. And then review the class and teacher expectations together so that you both know what to expect, and then you can ask follow-up questions throughout the year. The last little bit you can do is set goals for the year. And this year might be a particularly great time to set goals because it's going to be so different. So what does your child want to do beyond school? Like once all of this is over, if they're really young, what do they want to be when they grow up? Or if they're in high school, they're getting pretty close to going to college and start to actually pursue that area of interest. So come together with a goal and then break down that goal into smaller, more manageable steps. And you're in high school, do you need to take any AP classes? Are you ready to take SAT or ACT? Look ahead at the testing schedule and figure out which ones make the most sense for your child. If you're in middle school, are they ready to take the PSAT? All those things can be done in just little manageable steps that all lead towards that final goal. It's also good to have short-term goals. So have your child write a few down to work for the month. Maybe it's, get all assignments in for this week. And then you start with, all right, well, now let's bump that up to a month. Or if you have a semester, maybe you're looking to raise your semester GPA. So there are little things that you can set along the way as milestones to help break this year into smaller chunks. And that'll help the students get not only a sense of the passage of time, but also achievement, a sense of achievement as they go through that they might not get, through the virtual world. So they could get it at home and for themselves. You can also have a check-in meeting every week to see how they're doing towards those goals. And if you feel like your student is the kind of kid who can benefit from rewards as motivation, this is a great time to do it. All right, so wrapping up, we hope that there are some tips in here that will be helpful. I'm getting anxious to go get my desks from IKEA and get them set up. After you finish the webinar today, you're going to receive an email that will include 8 tips to start the school year off in a strong way. You'll also have a special promotional offer for your family just for attending today. You will also be able to join Sylvan Nation for free, and there are a lot of really good parent goodies in there. And we are available here to answer your questions until oh, this says 6 p.m. This is 5 p.m. But if you really want to stay for 2 hours and ask me questions, I'll stay. So with that, I think we are ready for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily. Great,
Sure.
great information. That's really super exciting. Hopefully people are feeling a little bit more ready for their kids to go back. We can definitely open up for Q&A. Feel free to add it into the chat, or you can add it to the Q&A section of the presentation. I did put a link to those documents in the chat already, so people can just follow that if they'd like. But they will be emailed directly to the address that people registered with as well. So that information will be available to them 2 ways. But if anyone has any chats, feel free to, or any questions rather, feel free to share them in chat or Q&A. I think if they're able to also raise their hand, are we able to let them just speak on here?
Either way, if they can type it in the chat or Q&A, that's best. But
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine as well.
Got one Q&A.
Let's see.
Oh, it says chat is disabled.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
just the Q&A box. Let's see. We can get that going. Let's see if there's a setting. Okay.
The chat might be reopened now.
Okay. Q&A.
Okay. Are there any questions for Emily? Any ideas or thoughts of how, anything you'd like to share, or any questions? Specific ways to prepare your students to be successful? There we go. We got some chats now. We've got a good content, Emily.
All right. Let me open up the chats here.
Feel free to ask any. If you're thinking it, other people probably are too. So don't hesitate to ask your questions.
Okay.
Let's see, we've got one in Q&A. I fight my high schooler to turn on his camera. I just think it's important for his teacher to see him. Any thought?
Yeah, I actually went through this with my third grader too. Teachers would like the cameras on to make sure that the students are engaged. And there was one time where I had a work meeting and I thought my son was engaged, and I went over and his camera was off and he was laying down playing his Nintendo Switch. So the teachers really want to have eyes on the kids, not only to make sure that they are completely engaged, but also to make sure that they're there, because it's easy to log in and turn off the camera and walk away. So I would say if you can, set your students' work area up in a place that's kind of easy for you to do kind of some walk-bys while they're online, and see if you can make sure that the camera is on, and can nudge them if they turned it off. If you've already done that and you still need more ideas, let me know, other than just kind of being right near them. Maybe that could be part of the reward system, that you have your camera on for every class, for the first week, and then bump it up to 2 weeks and then the month.
Great question. Yeah. I would guess with high schoolers that can be tough to
Right. I know.
to kind of force them to engage it, but
yes, with independence comes additional burdens, right?
We had a question about the slides. It looks like they will be sending those out.
Yeah. All right, there's separate children of different ages and keep them engaged. That's not easy, especially if you're also trying to do your job as well. I'm in the same boat. I would say keep them as far apart as possible if they're online and they're supposed to be paying attention. I would also give them headphones so that they're not as easily distracted by the other students' class if they're within earshot of each other. And I would, for their independent time when they're supposed to be working on their schoolwork, but they don't have to be actively logged into their class, their Google Meet or their Zoom, then I would see if you can make a schedule where they have breaks at different times. So that way you get kind of the staggered break time, so that when they're down, when they have a little bit of downtime, they can do what they want to do, and there'll be less pressure for them to do something together. Because if they have if they're anything like my kids, if they have very little free time, there's gonna be some conflict about how they spend that free time. So if there's any way you can give them kind of alternating schedules during the independent time, that might help too.
Great. Any special recommendations for a child with ADHD and on the spectrum?
Well, I also have a child who is ADHD and on the spectrum. So this question is near and dear to my heart. Be as organized as humanly possible. Just one of the things I'm planning to do without knowing the age of your child is I'm going to make a daily schedule so they know, like, hourly what he's supposed to do, and then I'm going to put it either inside a plastic sleeve or laminated or something like that. So then we can just, with dry erase marker, and that way we can write, the change from day to day and go over it together so they know what to expect. Because, children who are on the spectrum really need that preview and of how the day is going to go. So start that day with, all right, we're going to set the tone. Here's the expectations for today. Here's how it's going to go. It's right here in case you forget it. And if you have any trouble, we're working it together, that kind of a thing. And if the ADHD is making them very antsy, mine doesn't get that antsy, but I know that they can. Make sure that you schedule more frequent breaks. And it might take your child a little bit longer to get through the independent work, but that's okay. That's completely fine if they need to space that work out with some breaks so they can, like, get the wiggles out, burn off some energy, and then come back to it. If it takes longer during the day, that's just kind of how it is. And if you have an IEP for your child, then this school should be supportive of that extra time. Oh, 8th grade. 8th grade is I taught 8th grade, and that can be a really interesting transition year, because it's still in middle school, but they're already, like, they can smell high school in the air, and the big transition that's coming up. So organize, and make sure that he or she has plenty of breaks to get refreshed. Oh yeah, my anxiety too. It's a fun mixed bag. Yep, fidgets, pull-up bar, let them run around outside while the weather's still conducive to that. If they have something really that they love to do, make that the break time reward. And or even, like, even if they want to do a Google Meet with just one friend, because being in a Google Meet with 20 other kids is, they might see their friends, but they're not really seeing their friends. And if they can't get together with them, the word could be, maybe you have a FaceTime, maybe you have Google Hangout with just one friend. And mine do that, and they always feel a little better after, because they can, like, take the phone or take the computer and walk around the house and show them the new dog or the gerbil, or here's this thing I planted outside. They can feel like they're having a much better experience, even if it's virtual.
Awesome, that's great feedback. How about how to engage them for hands-on activities?
Hands-on activities are going to be really, really important, especially for our younger kids. So the littles really need to, like, dig in, get their hands on stuff, and really work on their fine motor skills, because a lot of them are not used to holding a pencil all day. So that takes fine motor skills and some hand strength that a lot of them might not have yet. And I have been contacted by a few of my friends whose kindergartners are starting this year, and I think, oh, I get so. I just feel for those families that their kindergarten is starting on Google Meet, and it's hard to play with blocks over Google Meet. So for hands-on activities for the young ones, there are a few things you can do. So you can have, if they're learning letter formation or early writing skills or anything like that, you can get, if you have like a cookie sheet that has the ridges around the side, you can pour sand in there or small beans or like dried peas, anything like that. And they can write the letter in the sand or write the letter with, in the beans kind of a thing. And that's fun practice that helps them, get a little hands-on. I would say even for crayons, if you break them in half, that actually promotes better pencil grip because like they have to hold it the right way. Like those big chunky pencils are no good. Don't get the big ones. The little ones are much better for fine motor. And I would also do the little golf pencils. That works great too, to build fine motor at home. If you're looking for other hands-on activities, early math skills benefit a lot by counting and sorting. So M&Ms are great. Different kinds of dried beans are great if you don't want to go the candy route, and have them, sort by color, line them up by most color to least amount of color. Add, if I have 4 blues and 6 oranges, how many do I have all together? So there are different things that you can do. Even if it's not part of their online school day, they're easy to do to work into, an after school or weekend kind of activity that's still fun. If you have older students and you want to work on skills that are more complex, but you still want them up and moving, a great thing is to get a twister game, just a twister board, and lay it out on the floor. And you can fill the circles with kind of anything you want to work on. So you might say, you might have numbers on them, just the digits 0 through 9, and then say, come up with a sum of 11 with your feet. And then they have to figure out, like, how did they get to 11? So 1 foot on an 8, 1 foot on a 3, 1 on a 5, 1 on a 6, however they want to get there. So they can practice early math skills that way. Or if you have a good weather outside and some sidewalk chalk handy, you can make hopscotch into any kind of early math or early reading game as well. So if you could fill your hopscotch game with sight words or numbers, and you can do kind of the same activity. And if you do have a kindergartner or first grader or preschooler, I used to have sight word flashcards, and I would practice with my kids when they were in the bathtub because they were captive audience and they couldn't get away. But it became kind of a game, give them bubbles and the whole thing, and kind of make a fun activity out of it. So anytime you think you might be able to work in a little bit of learning in a painless, hands-on way, go for it. And if you look on Pinterest, you will find a ton of hands-on activities that are really simple to do with basic household items. I mean, the ones I mentioned are just the tip of the Pinterest iceberg. So feel free to go digging, and you'll find some really fun stuff in there.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Emily? Not seeing any other questions at this time. Okay, well, Emily, thanks so much for your insight and your wisdom, sharing all of that with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope everyone has a great fall, and we're all in this together. We will row this boat to shore.
Thank you both so much. That was a great presentation. I know I was over here taking notes, Emily, for my little one at home. So we appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And really appreciate.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
So we really appreciate being here, and like Emily said, we wish you all lots of luck this fall, and we're all in this together. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need us.
Thank you. And as a reminder, everyone will be emailed the survival tips as well as the flyer for a discount for your services. So we appreciate you sharing that with our guests.